How's it going, sports fans? This is Jack and Ryan from the Talking Jack Sports Podcast. New locales for both of us. Look at us. We're mixing it up, you know?
Indeed. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're at your house, but
I'm home. I'm back,
I'm in
baby.
a hotel room. So,
Are
lovely
you
city of Houston? Shout
hotel
out
room,
those
huh,
people.
Ryan? Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Undisclosed location.
I already said Houston.
Oh, okay,
I'm
okay.
allowed
He's
to
not
say
shy about
that.
it.
I'm in Houston. I'm not allowed to say what for though. You know.
Gotta keep that
top
on the
secret.
down low. Can't have
I already
any
signed my NDA,
avid
so-
Talking Jack sports fans running up to your room. You know, we got a big fan
Exactly.
base in Houston.
Absolutely.
So for our audio listeners, we're back. School is over for now, but Ryan is still very involved. He's got a lot on his plate. Me, I have stuff on the plate, but I would say Ryan's doing some more important stuff this summer. So that is to say, uploads may be not scheduled, but they will be when they happen. And when they happen, they will be quality as always. But today, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and we will probably talk about that in due time as we're recording this right now. Game 7 of Knicks-Pacers is on, and we've got that going on in the background. So if there are any reactions that happen, we might hit the timeout button and watch Knicks-Pacers.
Exactly.
Because that game's getting heated right now. And then we've got Nuggets-Timberwolves tonight, and we will talk about the West and Eastern Conference Finals. Hopefully, we'll get some thoughts out. Maybe it's going to be on the TikTok. So if it's on the TikTok, go over there. We've been a little vacant on there as well. But with all the preamble out of the way today, we're just doing top 10s. We're continuing what we did, I believe it was 2 episodes ago now. It was before our first round draft recap. We did quarterbacks then, and we kind of teased that we had receivers and running backs. We only got through quarterbacks that day because we had a lot to talk about. But today, that's the spotlight. It's wide receivers and running backs. We did this last year around the same time, and we're going to rank our top 10. We've got some honorable mentions too. So, Ryan, I'm excited, man.
All right, which one you want to start with? Receivers, running backs?
We'll rock with receivers because that's what's on the top of my list. So, hand out some honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions.
Yeah, just run through them.
To start, when I was grading them, I was like, I kind of did it a little bit off stats, a lot off film, and then a little bit just for like, I don't like saying the word upside, but if it's a young player who's already really good, it's like, why not? You know, I'd rather have him going into it than an old veteran. So, but with that being said, honorable mentions. I have Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, Michael Pittman, Chris Olave, D-Hop. That one hurts my feelings a lot, but Amari Cooper. Keenan Allen. I also don't really like Keenan Allen, but he deserves to be here. George Pickens, because I like
the shout out. I like the shout out. He'll be knocking on the door for sure.
The two that you might have an argue with me. I left Cooper Kupp in an honorable mention. Okay. And then Diggs is an honorable mention for me.
Okay. I'm actually glad you talked about both of them because neither of them are even in my honorable mentions, much less the list. So okay, I'm glad you mentioned them because those are two ones that are pretty contentious. Both guys, I believe, were in, at the worst, our top 6s last year. Pretty significant fall off for them both. Age and injury have both hit them pretty hard. So we'll see how they bounce back. So
I was saying with Diggs specifically.
When
he was doing really well, but the Bills were losing, and then when the Bills started winning a bunch of games, he fell off a cliff.
Exactly.
Which is
an interesting trend. I don't want to see it's a causation, correlation, right? Yeah, but still, very interesting trend.
It's interesting how there's a huge dip in one of those guys.
100%. I agree. I'm glad that you mentioned that as well because I was not going to talk about those guys, so I'm glad that you did. I don't have quite as many honorable mentions because I think this kind of upper echelon top 10, while there is a lot of talent in the league, is still pretty exclusive to me. So the guys that I want to talk about in my honorable mentions, D-Hop is also not on my list. Still, while old, very talented, and I think Levis, year 2, I don't want to say regain form as if he's fallen off, but I think he'll catch a lot of people's eye.
Step up. Yeah.
Jalen Waddle, who I think is the best wide receiver 2 in the league. That's pretty consensus. But he hasn't done enough, I think, on his own to sneak into the top 10. Many people think so. I do not. I have DJ Moore, a guy who just had his best season in his first year in the Windy City, and I think he'll be even better with Caleb. I did have Diggs, but I listed it as the Houston Texans as a whole because that entire team just has a nuts wide receiver core, and him and Tank
That is
Dell
true.
actually is just. I watched some of his film, man. I thought he was good already. Man, he is insane. His route running, his body control,
Tank
it's
Dell is
truly
insane.
elite. And after this year, I think he is the wide receiver 1 in Houston, and I think he will out produce Stephon Diggs this season. He's going to catch a lot of people's eye. And then I had
Diggs has a huge connection. I doubt that he won't.
I think it's actually very interesting
slot.
that Diggs wanted to be there, because CJ already has this rapport with these guys, and not to mention Nico Collins, by the way, who just had a 1,200 yard season. He actually was the wide receiver 1. People, I think, already are sweeping him under the wayside. He's a guy that knocks on the door of this tier of receivers.
Talent.
I can't believe I almost forgot to mention him, because he's also fantastic. But I have just outside the top 10, Brandon Ayuk. A lot of people have him as the number 1 receiver in that system and a top 10 guy. I just don't see it in clutch time quite yet. He strikes me a lot like CeeDee Lamb did last year, a guy that I had ranked outside the top 10 because he, to me, had not performed quite good enough in clutch time scenarios. He had not been that it factor quite yet. He had a lot of stats in garbage time and in like the first halves of games where it didn't quite matter as much. But I digress. I think he will probably be here after this next season. And then Terry McLaurin, I have to shout him out because I don't think he's on the list. I'm going to be a non-biased Washington fan and say that he is fantastic, but just quite misses on the list. And then Marvin Harrison Jr., who I think will 100% be at worst in the top 10 after this season, but I am not going to rank a rookie because I simply can't do that. I have to see you play on an NFL level, but I think he will be absolutely, utterly fantastic.
I was gonna say, honestly, any receiver who was drafted within like the first round has a lot of high hopes for me. Like, I mean, when you look at it, obviously Marvin Harrison, enough we know all about him. Both the LSU guys and Neighbors and Thomas are guys I absolutely love, and I think actually got to a system that hopefully is best for them. I feel bad for Neighbors because I'm not very high on Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
So that gives me kind of like an Odell situation where it's like they're either only throwing it to him or just can't even get him the ball.
Yeah.
Adunze should be fine with that system. You know,
there's a lot of guys competing for targets in there, so I'm interested to see how his stat sheet looks at the end of the year.
And then even at the very end, you have like Keon Coleman in the second round. You have Xavier Legette, who, by the way, has the best accent I've ever heard.
Dude, it's my favorite.
Honestly, I'm happy that he went to the Panthers because now I get to hear him at post time when they, somehow beat us because Atlanta can do that sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. But not Ricky Pearsall. He doesn't get any shout outs.
Oh, well.
He gets the anti-shout out.
One good catch and then got obliterated.
That's what I'm saying. I saw his I saw something earlier today. It was like percentage like per route run, like types of routes, where it like catch percentage. And his on nines, he literally had like a 40% like catch percentage on nines, where it's
really
like deemed catchable.
Understand where the Niners are going with that.
Yeah,
I guess it was just to have insurance in case they lose a receiver.
I guess. I mean, I think somebody's probably going to be out the door. Maybe it takes to the deadline next season, but I digress. That's more off-season theory draft stuff, which we might make an episode talking about the draft in its entirety later on. But until then, let's get into our top 10. So at number 10, I'll kick it off. I was talking about him. I was talking about him before the recording started, and he is too productive to leave him out of the top 10. It's Mike Evans. He has not had a season yet in the league that has not been 1,000 receiving yards. He still continues to be clutch in the big moments, despite his low light reel being pretty fantastic. I feel like every year he has just a diabolical drop, I feel like, in the end zone that people literally, yes, like it blows my mind how it's the same highlight like every year. It's always against a divisional opponent where he just drops like the easiest touchdown of his life. But despite that low light reel, I think Mike Evans is still a very professional, massive target, a guy that makes people better. makes his teammates better. I think that's a big reason why Chris Godwin has been so effective in the time that he's been there, why they've been able to bring in veterans like Scotty Miller comes to mind. Russell Gage comes to mind when he was healthy. Tight ends like Cameron Brate, and right now they have Cade Otton. He just makes them all better, I feel like. And that presence I can't leave outside the top 10.
I mean, fair. I don't even have him as an honorable mention, not in the top 10.
You have a personal issue with Mike Evans.
There is some personal issues, mainly because when I was a kid, there was a Tampa fan, and we'd always talk about who's better between Julio and Evans, and obviously the answer is Julio.
But that one I can't debate.
But I don't know. He feels very like Aaron Rodgers stat pad to me. Like is clutch occasionally, and it can show that off.
Well, it's tough to define clutch for a team like the Buccaneers, which since before Brady, they didn't have a lot of clutch situations. With Brady, he obviously won a ring. And then this year with Baker,
I was going to say,
I feel like he really elevated Baker's play,
Maybe. I mean, maybe that's also I'm just a little higher on Baker Mayfield. I feel like
I think maybe that's the difference. Browns. I think Baker is a good quarterback, but I don't think he's a fantastic one. And Mike Evans made him look better than he probably is.
I mean, they probably pair themselves up pretty well, but I just always feel like he was just the guy that always gets a lot of targets. One, because he is good. I'm not gonna say he's not, but I don't know. He's just very slow, and he's a big catch radius dude, so he can get some easy yards and then just kind of sits there. That's just what I see in him. I'm also a Falcons fan, so there's a little bit bias there. So
yeah, he's biased. Let's be honest. I tried to put my bias aside. I think I did a good job, which you'll see eventually, but.
I was going to say,
regardless, you're number 10.
He was going to be a little higher because I thought at number 10, you know what? We love him. Give me Puka, man. Puka at 10.
Man.
Already.
Wow. I didn't even have Puka as an honorable mention. I should have. I should have had him as an honorable mention. I should have mentioned him, but he's not in my top 10. I didn't forget about him. I forgot to slide him into the honorable mentions.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, on the cusp, 10 for me is appropriate. He's younger than most of the guys behind him. I think you could say a lot of his success did come from the Matthew Stafford syndrome, where it's just he beelines a ball to one receiver as much as he can.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to be kind of good to do that. And I mean, I was a guy who just kind of thought that for a while, but then I watched his film and I would just see him break down, and I'm like, maybe this guy actually needs the credit that he deserves. So I'm perfectly comfortable giving him that 10 spot. And yeah, I think he deserves it, Congrats, Puka.
I think that's fair. I should have at least had him as an honorable mention. That's on me. Yeah, he's a really, really polished route runner for sure. I feel like he makes a lot of clutch plays, whether that be as a blocker, as opposed to a receiver, because he's a very solid blocker as well. But it is tough to look at what Cooper Kupp did, how everyone ranked him so high, us included, and then see him go down. And a guy like Puka comes in and fills almost the exact same role. It's tough to kind of dissociate that from your brain and go, shoot, were we wrong about Kupp? Was it a system thing? Was it a slot thing? Was it a Stafford thing? It's tough, but I think he is like the Brock Purdy of receivers to me. That is who he is.
Honestly, that's perfectly reasonable.
That's how I feel.
Funny enough, I have Brock Purdy at 9, so that's perfectly fair with me.
Yeah, I think I had him at 10 in the quarterback ranking.
Exactly.
So spoilers, if you have not listened to the quarterback ranking, go do that. But yeah, I think that's perfectly fair. So the spoiler alert, 2 next guys that I have are both guys you don't have on your list, which I know from your honorable mentions. So I'm curious to see how you react to this. At number 9, I have Amari Cooper. I think he is severely, severely underrated. I think he continuously performed for the Browns where they had a revolving door under center, even before Flacco, who was consistently slinging it to his receivers accurately, unlike guys like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, PJ Walker. Who else did they have in there after Deshaun? They had another guy. I think it was Driscoll, which I'm not going to count him. I think that's who I'm thinking of. But even when Deshaun was playing, he wasn't impressive at all. Exactly. Deshaun was not. But Cooper was very impressive. He was keeping the receiving stat sheet filled, basically, because other guys were having trouble contributing, I would say, to their ability. But Amari showed that no matter who's under center, he is still an absolute beast. I remember it was like a 220-yard game he had against probably
Yep.
us. Um, he's phenomenal. I think he does everything to a high level.
Yeah, did I not say Amari Cooper? I do
He
have
was in
him
your
in
honorable
my
mention.
honorable
That's why I
mentions.
said I
Okay,
knew we didn't have him.
okay, yeah. I mean, to your point, like I said, that is a guy who I can easily feel more than comfortable putting him at like the 8, 9, and 10 range for me. Like I feel
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of those people in that honorable mention in those slots, I can really flip flop. It's like preference. I do think like I don't want to say Flacco is good, but they do have a very good line, which give people time to get the ball out. But no, to your point, like Cooper is a phenomenal receiver. He's always really flown under the radar since he left Dallas, I guess. But
Yeah, I think so,
always been
100%.
he's always
He
been
got
a
traded from
respectable
Dallas for
receiver.
peanuts, and ever since people have thought that's what he's worth, which is not true at all.
Exactly. Like easily could be in that top 10 spot. And honestly, with a healthy Deshaun, he could easily be even
He
higher
could
on
reach
that
new
list.
heights for sure. All right.
Moving on. My number 9, you had him in your honorable mention, but I think DJ Moore with how that
Oh,
combination
not
with
who I thought you were
Justin
going to say.
Fields. I mean, I don't want to say Fields isn't like a good quarterback, but for him to have one of his like best seasons with a guy like Justin Fields, who I mean, if you want to just look at a trade value, got like a 7th-round pick for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty insane. He's did really good. I mean, also I did get to watch him in Carolina. He always, ended up cooking us. I always
Yeah.
remember the PJ Walker Hail Mary to him,
Haha,
where
what a
he
play.
throws his helmet off his head, gets us plus 15, and they miss the field goal, and then we win the game anyway. But I didn't even feel good about that game because we should have lost.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I can't even look at that and be like, nah, I'm okay with that. Like that was disrespectful. Um, I just have a lot of respect for DJ Moore and what he has done for the Bears, the Panthers, and probably what he's going to do with Caleb Williams, making him look like the next Peyton Manning. So
Yeah, I think that's a great take. DJ was I was pretty cautious not putting him on the list because I've seen a lot of DJ Moore truthers out there saying that he, like in Carolina, was at least to some extent part of the problem with the passing game because he had some issues with his separation and things like that. But I'm happy you put him on the list because I think he deserves to be there for at least one of us. So I'm happy you put him on the list.
exactly.
At number 8, like I hinted at before, another guy that I know you don't have on your list. I am so high on Garrett Wilson. I think that he, with the healthy Aaron Rodgers, is a top 5 receiver in football, and I can't put him there yet. But even number 8 is high for some people. I think he does, like Amari Cooper, so much at a high level. I think his catch radius is massive. I think his route running is super polished, and I think he has specific things that he does in his route running that is like literally the best in football. Like he runs some drags like the most simple drag you've ever seen, and he like within seconds has yards and yards and yards of separation with some of the best defenders in football. It blows my mind some of the catches that he's able to make, and not to mention a thing that I mentioned with Amari. He's doing all this with terrible quarterback play again, and he is like the sole reason that this offense can do literally anything at all. It can move the football at all because Breece Hall has been banged up, so you can point to him. But when he's not on the field, Garrett is the guy that's moving the chains. And when I watch him, and he's a guy that I say this about every Ohio State player on this podcast, but he's a guy that I watched growing up. I watched every snap that he played in college. I knew was going to be fantastic when I watched him in college. And maybe I'm still biased in terms of my pre-NFL thoughts about him, but to this point, he's proved me right, I think.
No, I mean, honestly, to your point, has no reason not to be in a top 10 list. I do want to say it's like I feel bad because once again I would be more than happy to put him in that list if he had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback to actually kind of like give me some stats to justify it.
Yeah.
But maybe this is a terrible take, but I was talking with my friend and we kind of said that like Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and then Drake London are all like around the same skill level, just
Mm,
excel in very different aspects. So London's
I
like a
don't know
very
about
contested
that.
catch guy. I don't really know what you know. I guess I would say Olave has pretty good route running, but Garrett Wilson is honestly the best of both worlds out of that, which is what
In
I
my
pulled
opinion,
him.
I agree with that. I think he is a fantastic route runner. I think he is an underrated deep threat, though not his specialty. I
Exactly.
would say that it's more Chris Olave's um, forte. A guy that I wouldn't say is an honorable mention in terms of he belongs with those other guys, but I think he can be up there, by the way. So shout out Chris Olave. I'm glad you mentioned
Yeah,
him.
I mean, those three, like in my opinion, they all excel at one thing or another. So it's really pick your flavor of receiver. But I only had Garrett Wilson on this. I mean, I did have Olave. Sorry, my boy Drake, but get some more
Drake London's
targets,
not
man.
here.
Like,
Let's be
come on.
honest.
Okay, I will say the most notable stat is since he's been in the league, he is I think fourth in contested catches, which is like
Drake
pretty
London?
damn respectable. Yeah,
That's pretty
but
good. Yeah. Dang.
we
Did
need to
not
get
know
him the
that.
ball. We need to have a quarterback, which is probably the issue. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna say keep an eye out for London and
I think that's
Pitts.
fair.
They should actually have competent quarterback play.
I think that's fair.
Um, but with that being said, we're on number 8.
Yes.
Um, this one kind of hurts just because he is pretty good, and I want to put him higher. I just can't. I have AJ Brown. Um,
Uh
you have him higher? You have him
as
higher?
as a fan of a division rival, I hate AJ Brown, but I respect him too much to put him that low. I
Yeah.
I,
I
I
mean,
disagree pretty heavily with that.
I just couldn't. I mean, there was a little fall off in production this year. With that, I wouldn't say that was his fault. There was more Hurts
I would
issue,
point
but
towards that roster and to a lesser extent that offense as a whole having a
yeah,
really significant rough patch, you
I
know?
I really want to put him higher, but I just couldn't. Like in my mind, I just couldn't justify putting him over somebody that has at least shown a lot more. I do really like him because I think when I remember his comp, it was Julio Jones. Fast, big receiver who's strong. Like that
I
is
think
that
he
is like
plays
my
a lot like
perfect.
Julio. I think
I I
that's fair.
really I really want to put him higher, and I'm not. I'm gonna look for everything next year to put him higher. I'm gonna be honest. Like I'm gonna
Hmm.
grab at straws here, but this dude could easily be like a top 5, top 4 receiver if we just need to see more from him. I need to see more from him.
I don't know what more you'd want to see. He's
I mean, he
a
showed a
Super
lot.
Bowl wide receiver one. I don't know. I don't know what more you would want to see. I'll talk about him later. I'll say my piece on him
Fair
later.
enough.
But yeah, for now at number 7, I think I might be shortchanging this guy. But this is where we get, in my opinion, into the real nitty gritty of this list and into a lot of preference where guys are really similar and it's like just who do you take over the other? It's just kind of a preference thing. Amon-Ra St. Brown is at number 7 for me. And I think he does, like the guys that I've already mentioned, so much well. Um, he's sneaky, sneaky fast. Like that dude is a burner
Very.
for sure. Yet he can work the middle of the field expertly. Um, there's just a lot that he does at the line of scrimmage that impresses me. There's a lot that he does over the top that impresses me. He's physical. He fits that culture in Detroit. I just think that he is primed to have a career season, even more so than this past one, like leading the league in receiving season. Um, it would not shock me at all if he comes away from this next year with like 1,800 receiving yards and he skyrockets into the top 3 of this list. But as of now, Amon-Ra is fantastic, and I think everybody knows it.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, he is pretty good. At my 7, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned his name yet, but I got CD Lamb.
It makes me happy that you
Um,
put him that low, but
I was
yeah,
gonna say I I mean, like first
you're
of
more
all,
biased against my division than I am.
fair.
I
I mean,
put
I don't really
all
like
my
the
biases
Cowboys,
to the
but
wayside.
like
I would love to
I
put CD Lamb at number 25.
I just think there's a lot more going on than meets the eye with CD. CD's very good at route running, very good at catching. Um, Pretty solid at all the stats all around. I mean, at this point, top 10, they're all good around the whole circle. But I do think a lot of his success does come from a weird Cowboy offense, and Dak also playing usually from down, so he has to throw the ball. They have to air it out a lot.
Okay.
I'm not going to say
Interesting
that's all
criticisms.
solely because of Dak, but I do think he's a good receiver. I mean, I put him over AJ Brown, which I don't know if you're going to do that as well, but I do like him. He's very fast, which is actually shown. You know,
Yeah.
I think he's a good receiver.
Um, I think those are some interesting criticisms. I think you're shortchanging him a little bit in the department of his numbers being more garbage time. Uh, yeah, I don't know how much the Cowboys are playing from behind. I think that's just kind of the nature of their offense. I think
I
maybe
was gonna
maybe
say,
to your point. I do think that they are primarily a passing attack, but that a lot of targets were coming his way because the lackluster supporting cast around him. But when you're double teaming him every play and he's still putting up the production that he is, at some point, when does it become a credit to him rather than the offense? You know. So I will talk about him also in a couple
I was
spots.
gonna say we both have him in top 10.
But yeah, I am happy you put him low in the sense that I hate CD Lamb. I despise him because he torches our secondary like clockwork. But you know,
Fair.
anyone can torch our secondary, dude. If you put me out there against the Washington Commanders secondary, I'm sure I'd get a couple of
Dropping,
catches.
I was gonna say dropping at least 10 yards.
Yeah, and try give me a screen pass, but have every other member of the offense block for me, and I will catch the football. I can promise you that. Um, but regardless, at number 6, a guy that has fallen as a result of poor quarterback and coaching play. It's Davante Adams. And I still really, really, really like Davante Adams. If you give him back Aaron Rodgers, I think he probably is exactly the same as he was a couple years ago. But here's the deal, Davante. You have a I would say lackluster season in terms of what we know you can do. And you watch the rest of the league in terms of wide receiver talent go that way. Go up quite significantly, you're going to fall down this list. And it sucks to say that because it's not like he was that much worse than what we're used to seeing out of Davante Adams. He's still a fantastic route runner. He's still just a sublime end zone threat when you get in there in the red zone. But the play that I saw out of him this year was one game you have 8 catches for 145 yards and a touchdown, and then the next you have 1 catch for 12 yards. Like that's the stat line for Davante Adams. Maybe this is my fantasy brain. Maybe he should be higher, but I don't know. He's wildly inconsistent this year. Still at the end of the season, smashing the stat sheet as usual, but I've got to see on a game-to-game basis him getting more than like 3 targets a game on average, which I think he probably did hit. But when you break that down, it's because every 2 games, one he's getting 9 targets and the other he's getting 2. And again, a credit. Let's look at the quarterback play. Very poor this season. But when it is poor, why is your terrible quarterback not trying to pad his own stats by targeting the best receiver by far on the team? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but that's my thoughts.
I mean, to your point, they should be throwing it solely to Davante Adams' way, but also, if you're not good enough to throw it to him,
I did
I'm
think
not
about
high
this.
on anybody in like the Raiders' offense apart from Davante Adams. I don't think their quarterbacks I don't think Aiden O'Connell really has a shot at what he's doing. I mean,
hey, dude, Gardner Minshew, the stash.
I was gonna say
career
Gardner
year
Minshew's
incoming.
probably gonna be their starter, man. Just I don't know. I didn't have any confidence there, and I don't know who wrote the plays for that offense this season, but I'm assuming he's fired. I just didn't like play calling for that as well because it really felt like they were trying their hardest to like do something that can incorporate Adams, but they don't have the quarterback skill.
He is fired, by the way. You are correct. They have Luke Getsy, the Bears guy. If that rings a bell.
Yep.
They brought him in, so hopefully he can reshape the offense. But you are correct. He is.
I was gonna say, hopefully they can fix that. But they just played to Adams' strengths, like where it's like, hey, we can get him open deep, open out to the left and right. But you don't have a quarterback that can throw you that ball like Aaron Rodgers did.
Yeah. So
I think just that quarterback play and play calling was just terrible for the Raiders. But with that being said, we're on number 6, correct?
That's right.
You might have to fight. You might be mad at me with this one, but I genuinely I think Brandon Ayuk is the sixth best receiver in the league.
Oh my God,
I
you are being brainwashed by the media, because the media, all I've heard from the media is that Brandon Ayuk belongs in the top 10, and all that I've watched is him shit himself in the playoffs. I'm sorry.
I will say the playoffs is a huge, clearly glaring problem, which is why he is not like even in the top five. Because clutch ability does also apply to receivers. To your point, but like maybe it's the system, but I mean his route running is by far one of the best out there. I mean, I can really think of like two players that maybe three that are like better than him at that route running. The athletic ability that he has to get yards after the catch on a I don't think he's a small guy, but he looks really skinny out in the field. So I'm gonna
I agree
say
with that.
smaller. Um, like he has the athleticism to get the sneaky yardage that most people don't expect, and then once again, the catching radius is big. Like he does everything that like a receiver should. He just needs to put on some weight, get in the weight room, get some more body in him.
Yeah, I think he does everything on paper that you want from a top 5 receiver. I just think that he um, doesn't perform in the clutch. That's my biggest and only real criticism with him. Is I've seen him over the past 3-4 postseasons put up a consistent 30 yards a game, and it's like he is. And I look at the Super Bowl like this past year, he was honestly a non-factor, being outperformed in almost every aspect by Jawan Jennings, the probable Super Bowl MVP, while the Niners were like leading in that game, by the way. So shout out to that guy. Maybe he deserves to be on the list. I don't know, but
Jennings was cooking, but I also do think Shanahan does something weird in the playoffs because it really feels like they don't play the same way. Like I feel like there's a switch there. Maybe that's just me looking at it, but I'm like,
see, if you are like going to switch your play style and take this guy who's a top 6 receiver in football and turn him into a decoy, then he can't be the top 6. He can't be a top 6 receiver in football to me, because you can't turn a guy of that caliber into a decoy. That's maybe I have a beef with. Maybe this is my Mike Evans.
This is your.
I have said, like last year, I had Brandon Ayuk around, like the 10 to 15 range. People were talking about him like potentially being in top 10. And after this season, where he put up a better season, but not an astronomically better one, that he's jumped up into this upper echelon, and I don't see it.
I was gonna say 6 for me is still not like the cutoff. I mean, 6 is the cutoff. Like, anyone who's in the top 5, I'm gonna say I'm taking over them 100% of the time.
I'm actually really curious to see. Speaking of that top 6, who you have
one
in
guy
there.
Who is basically just Brandon Ayuk but better. So
okay,
he's in here. I'm just saying.
I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see your take on him.
With that being said, number 5.
Number 5 for me is Ja'Marr Chase. I think that he offers something that is very difficult to find, which is the body control that he possesses on deep routes is pretty unique to him. I think he has a very one-of-one skill set, a guy that works perfectly with Joe Burrow in that offense. And maybe it is a product of the offense, but the way that he plays, I think that's impossible. And I think the only thing that's holding him back to this point is staying healthy, because I am valuing availability, and he hasn't had that consistently throughout his career yet. So when we see that, maybe he jumps up a couple spots, but I don't want this to be a really negative number 5 entry, because I do think Ja'Marr Chase is fantastic in almost everything that he does. I just think maybe working the middle of the field, there are parts of his game that leave you wanting more, maybe at the line of scrimmage, but he just has such a one-of-one skill set to me, and it's easy to see on tape that he's just so unique.
Exactly. And like I said, we'll probably get to him later in my list, but with that being said, at number 5, this was the guy who I was referring to as just a literal better version of Brandon Ayuk, that's Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's literally just like the better version.
I agree.
I feel like they're both a little bit on like the smaller, size, but like Amon-Ra still has more strength. If it looks like he has more strength, he has a higher catch radius. He's faster. He is literally like on paper what Ayuk is, but he can actually clutch up when needed to, and can be a guy you can consistently rely on. I mean, I'm not entirely high on like Jared Goff. I mean, I did say he was somewhere in my list. Yeah, I put him at 8, but
Oh yeah,
I do think a
you
lot
forgot
of
about
some of
Jared
that
Goff.
I did. That was the funny haha moment, but I
Yeah,
do
but you
think
rectified
like
that.
his play gets elevated even higher because of how well Amon-Ra St. Brown is. I mean, that there is so much that you could say about Amon-Ra, and the fact that he only had success like this one year, or I mean, he had success. This is his second year, right? Or his third?
I
He's
believe
going into
this
his third
past
season,
year was
right?
his third year.
Oh, okay.
I
Doesn't
think.
matter. He's a
I don't
young,
actually remember.
talented receiver. Like, and he, to your point, he fits in that Lions like vibe so well. Absolute dog.
Hmm.
And I can see him just getting even higher on this list. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not super be surprised if we're comparing him with number 1 and 2 in my list.
No doubt. I had basically the same take as you, so I totally agree. Um, so at my number 4, I'm now going to give a piece about AJ Brown. I sat with him and CD. Spoiler alert, I'm just going to tell you right now because this is probably not a shock. CD is my number 3. I I wrestled with CD and AJ for a little bit. I determined that AJ will be 4. I think he also provides one of the most unique skill sets in football. He is like a 6'4", massive bruiser of a wide receiver that is still somehow one of the most effective deep threats in the entire National Football League. I think that he, to an extent, elevates Jalen Hurts' play. I don't think Jalen's a bad quarterback, but I think that you give him A.J. Brown, shocking, Jalen Hurts looks like one of the best quarterbacks in football.
Yeah,
But I don't want to turn this into a quarterback review because AJ, the way he bullies defensive backs is something I don't think you can find in the rest of the league. And that's pretty much the way I see it. If you offer me something that is totally unique, one of one, like exclusive skill set, the way that AJ Brown handles himself in space and is able to leave guys in the dust as this massive hulk of a receiver and still one of the best catch points in football. Just so synergistic the way he plays with Devontae Smith. Like those two are the craziest parallels in football to me. Like Devontae
oh,
Smith is this
absolutely,
tiny, like, and then AJ Brown is like Thor. Like it's crazy.
exactly.
It sucks to have him in my division because he just torches us every time. But that's my piece on AJ Brown. I think he offers something like Jamar Chase that you can't find elsewhere in the league.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only guy that when I think about bullying corners is DK, and he's not in either of our lists.
Yeah,
Unless he's number
I'm
one for you,
surprised he
but
wasn't in your honorable mentions. He's
I
another guy that I kind of have beef with. I don't think DK is as
yeah.
good as a lot of people think he is. Um,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
funny enough,
DK
they
is kind of like
have
baby
the
AJ
same
Brown to me,
build
which is funny because they played
exactly,
the same team in college, like on those same
and
roster.
AJ is younger too, which is also funnier.
Really,
Or
I
is
actually
he?
didn't know that. I thought they were in the same draft class.
Oh, they might have been like a Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson thing.
I
Yeah.
thought they were in the
Um.
same draft class. I could be wrong in terms of year apart, but yeah, he might still be
Yeah, I
younger.
can't remember. He honestly, he still might be, but like no, those two I both see compared to Julio a lot, and you can say unfortunately for DK, maybe his quarterback play isn't as good. I think he has some tendencies that are like questionable. But AJ is about at the moment. AJ Brown is probably the closest receiver to Julio Jones
I would
once
agree.
was.
I would agree.
Unless you want to say but like if Jamar Chase was bigger, it'd probably be him, but he's not.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a little skinnier. But no, like I love both of those. Both Brown. I mean, watching him is awesome. I also do think he gets a lot of open though because of to both of our points, Smith. I think Demonte Smith does get a lot of more like notice type guy.
Yeah.
So you leave him less, fenced. You kind of want to have your safeties back and ready for both of them because either of them could go deep at any moment, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that you see when you have two really good receivers. Um, but if he was substantially better in the defense's eyes, he would be the one getting fenced every game, which he still might be. I will be honest, I haven't like looked at every single play by any means,
Mm-hmm.
But no, honestly, I'm perfectly fine with you putting him at the 3 spot,
4.
4. Yeah. And I mean, we both agreed that CD's just unfortunately better.
Yeah, I'll give my piece on CD really fast because it's short, so you can do your 4-3 as well.
Yeah.
Since I spoiled it, I think CD is just more polished in almost every aspect of his game. I think this season he
Exactly.
proved to me I was a hater last season. I thought he wasn't even top 10, and he proved to me this season that he excels in every aspect of the game. That includes like end zone presence, the small things. Like he is an underrated blocker in my opinion.
Very
Uh,
underrated. Yep.
he can work the middle of the field as well as the boundary, and he obviously is a burner as well. Like I saw him just dust so many corners this past year.
So
And
many
I think
fourth and
everyone kind of
inch
understands that. I think
throws.
you're lower on CD than the consensus. I think I have him about where he
I'd say most people would probably put him at
is
the
put.
top 5,
Yeah,
but
maybe I'm a little higher
um,
on him, but I can't be biased anymore. I have to relent and put him at the 3 spot. I hate doing
yeah,
it, but
fair enough.
so you can do your tandem
With
4
that
3.
being said, I was gonna say 4. You also dropped him a little bit low, but I think you dropped him a little lower than he should have been. Devontae Adams.
Mm-hmm. I saw him
He
coming.
is
Yep.
still like arguably, if you want to say just pure talent, he is definitely higher up that, and he just suffered so much this year with quarterback play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not very high on Jimmy G. I'm not very high on Aiden O'Connell. I don't know who else was between those two, but like,
That was basically it. I think
yeah,
there's
basically
Brian
it.
Hoyer in there. I think.
Oh yeah, obviously the best guy there.
Yeah, the goat Brian Hoyer.
No, but when your receiver was Jimmy G, who we all kind of consistently agreed on was a system quarterback who could throw the ball in a short attacking offense that the Niners had, it's not really it's not looking too good for you.
It's not a
It
great
felt
fit.
like, I think that was like his biggest mistake was going to the Raiders. He should have just waited to see what Aaron Rodgers did and then joined him, and or whatever, or just leave to a person that actually had a competitor. I will say he should honestly just walk now, because the whole point of him going to the Raiders was having Derek Carr. Just go to the Saints or something. Actually, don't go to the Saints, but go somewhere else.
Yeah, don't
just,
go to the
just
Saints.
leave.
You don't want him on the Saints.
I was gonna say I don't want him on the Saints, but you can go anywhere else as long as it's not the NFC South. Hell, come to Atlanta. I really don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he was really just put in chains here. It's just like an unfortunate scenario with what happened with the Raiders this year. But I still think I have full confidence in Adams as a receiver. Like, the only question I have is he's older. Like, how much does he regress?
He's a little older. I need to see one more year with a quarterback that doesn't suck, which probably won't happen this year, because who do they have that doesn't suck? Gardner Minshew. Sorry, excuse me.
Gardner Minshew. Yeah,
not to disrespect the stash himself, but I'd need to see him again in a better system to see if it was really this system. But regardless, yeah.
Oh, and then I forgot. I'm going number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, I will take a little bit of the bias to keep him at the 3 spot. I think I had him 3 last year. It's Jamar Chase.
Okay.
To your point, I probably should have dropped him because the best whatever is availability.
The best ability is availability. Yeah.
Exactly. And with you being hurt, it's kind of like, you've been hurt you've had lingering issues for two seasons at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, he reminds me of Julio in that aspect, where he just has some random injury and he's just not as productive. But to your point, probably the best guy at body control in the NFL, one of the best. There's plenty to say of why he's good. There's a reason, they were so keen on getting Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell for that Bengals offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think he's proved it since day one of why he is that guy in Cincy. If he can stay healthy, along with Burrow, I think they'll be back at another chance for that Super Bowl ring. Maybe.
Maybe,
playoffs,
yeah.
But...
Okay, so we find ourselves at the 1-2 because there's two guys.
It's difficult for me.
There's two guys. It's difficult, but I think we both know in our heads who has less weaknesses, right? let's say our number one, because everyone listening, we both know who it's between. Let's say our number one on 3, okay? Because revealing the number 2 first is less impactful. So we're revealing the number one.
Number 1.
3, 2, 1. Justin Jefferson.
Tyreek Hill. I will say why. I'll say why. Okay.
No. That's so sad. That's so sad.
And here's the unfortunate part. I do think Jettis is better.
So he's your number one?
No.
What?
There's a reason.
Ryan, he's better, but he's not better?
Okay, fair, but I couldn't look past at least this season and like respectfully put me saying that Tyreek Hill isn't at the moment the best receiver in the league.
Dude, he's the best receiver at having kids in the league. I'm trashing Tyreek Hill like he's not my number 2. But
I was gonna say, I mean, we both know both 1, 2. For me, this is A and B. I do think Tyreek Hill excels in one category like no other, and that is speed. But one of the things that you also mentioned was availability, and this man played like 1 or 2 more games than Justin Jefferson did. I mean, honestly, probably more because Jefferson was on IR for that bit.
It was a lot more. Yeah, I don't know.
If he didn't choke that last like 2 games with a little injury, a little dinged up, he would have had a record. So it's hard to put me like in that.
Here's why I don't think Tyreek Hill is number 1. It is 2 reasons: the system he plays in, and his glaring weakness, which is the line of scrimmage. I think he is very easily put off his stance at the line of scrimmage. They kind of have figured out how to play him, which is if you bully him at the line and you really jam him at the line, you will be able to beat him. If you do not play exactly to beat Tyreek Hill, he will burn you and crush your secondary more than any receiver in football. But I think he has a glaring and identifiable weakness that Justin Jefferson does not have. And also the system he plays in pads his stats more than any other, because Tua, literally, they play in a system full of like hamsters. Like they just, all the receivers on that roster. I was convinced they were going to draft Xavier Worthy this year just so they could have a third dude that breaks the scale, that breaks the radar gun, right? Exactly. But that's why. I get your reasoning, because he does have a quite identifiable skill that nobody else in the league can match. But he also has a very glaring Achilles heel.
I mean, to your point, I wouldn't say it like, at least in my eyes, it's not as glaring, because the way that they scheme him, it's hard to get a press on unless like, you know, if he because he's always running around the entire field, going up and down, you know. And I would say there's a handful of corners who can properly cover the like press him right out the gate. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong here. If you could give me like a prime like time of when he got pressed by like a like corner of like notable, you know, talent.
Do you remember when they played the Bills and they lost to the Bills in that very, very crucial game where they lost to the Bills last season?
Okay.
It was that one. That's the one that I remember.
That's the one you talk about? They didn't have White on him?
Trey White was hurt, I think.
He was hurt. All right.
It's not like it takes a corner with talent to be able to throw him off his game. But when you are physical with those Dolphins, when you are physical with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they crumble to me. They don't crumble. Yeah, I mean, they will still. It's like Jokic in the NBA. When you talk about, oh, Jokic had a bad game, and you look at the box score and he had like 27, 8, and 8, and it's like, what the hell? A bad game? And it's like, well, yeah, for Jokic, we're used to 38, 12, and 12. And it's like, okay, sure. Right? Tyreek Hill's still going to have 60 yards and a touchdown. But Justin Jefferson never has 60 yards and a touchdown. He is like a guaranteed 100 yards a game.
Yeah, which is perfectly fair. I mean, I'm going to just call my shot here. He stays healthy all next season. He's going to be in the number 1 spot again.
Okay. I understand your thing with injury, but this isn't a trend for him. You know, with a guy like Burrow, that ACL tear his first year, nobody called him injury prone. And then after this past season, where he had multiple
like,
things going
well,
on, suddenly
yeah.
being injury prone is part of your profile, right? That's just how it works.
Which is not a good thing to have, definitely,
right?
because that loses you just value and everything. But also, side note, the better quarterback is obviously Kirk Cousins here. Just saying.
Anyways,
no, I do think they scheme both of them equally well. Like I won't say the Vikings have like an insane scheme just for Jettas like the Dolphins do,
mm-hmm.
but when you really look at it, they make sure that his scheme fits super well with Jettas, and I think the connection between him and Cousins, at least in what they need out of each other, was like almost as perfect as they can get. The only person I think is more perfect is Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow because they've been playing since college. Like,
yeah, I'm with you there. Okay, so that's the receivers. Wow, that took a while. So we're gonna do.
Jettas is awesome though. So.
Yeah, they're the 1 and 2. At the very least, we can agree on that. I think that's pretty set.
In Madden, I'm taking Jettas in the fantasy draft. So
yeah,
that's all that really matters at the end of the day.
Facts. So that was the receivers. We have the running backs. I think we can do it. We can just be a little faster about it. So we are now transitioning.
Yeah, we got this.
We can make it work. So in terms of honorable mentions, I've got a couple guys that I was upset that I had to leave out, but I will shout out James Cook, a guy that's going to be here after the season for sure and is already here for many. Travis Etienne, I think that he has some high highs, but also some low lows and relies a bit too much on his system. Kenneth Walker, a guy that has struggled with injury like that, like you kind of mentioned with Justin Jefferson. Maybe it's unfair of me to say that about K9, but yeah, and I think they had similar production with different running backs. So I still think he's very talented and probably should be here. But regardless, I have 3 veterans that I think are in this tier in Aaron Jones, a guy that's very, very underrated. It hurts me not to put him on there. But injuries also, like that one's a trend. He can't stay healthy.
Unfortunately.
Alvin Kamara, a guy that is at this point a poor runner of the football, but is unequivocally one of the best receivers at his position in the NFL. And Josh Jacobs, a guy that's kind of a question mark right now. Is he good because he got fed a billion carries? Because he had some of the worst yards per carry this past season. Say it again.
I think we both agreed that that's why he's good.
Yeah, I think we did too. So I'm curious to see how he does in Green Bay this year because they're not going to feed him like they did in Las Vegas with a guy like Jordan Love under center. But I digress. I'm interested to see how he does. And then the Miami Dolphins as a whole. I think Raheem Mostert is a touchdown merchant, and if he's on your list, I think you're only looking at touchdowns. So if he's on your list, I'm going to flame you. But Devon Achane, I think, actually is insane and probably could be here after a season where he gets the majority of the snap share as opposed to splitting with Mostert. So that's my honorable mentions.
Yeah, I'm just going to give you a heads up. One of those guys that you said, hey, if they're on the list, is probably on this list. They're not high, but they're on the list.
Okay.
I have in my honorable mentions Austin Eckler. I think Swift did pretty solid with the touchdowns, sure.
Okay.
Bryce Hall is a guy who I really want to.
I'm sorry, the TikToker? Bryce Hall, the TikToker?
Brees, right? My fault.
Holy.
So I only put last names. I probably should put both.
Bryce Hall.
Yeah, Hall. I really want to put in this list, and I would be more than happy to put him in the list. But like, please stay healthy. You know.
That's fair. That's
Joe
fair.
Mixon is another guy who I'm like, he's pretty solid.
Oh, shout out Joe Mixon also. He's in that vets category for me. I forgot to put him in the honorable mentions, but yeah.
And then I put James Conner also on this list just because
he deserves a shout out too.
If you look at the stats, he did pretty damn good.
If you look at his stat sheet, he's up there with the top 10 guys in the league for sure. I would agree.
So I was like, I'm gonna give him a head, but I'm just gonna jump at number 10. I really did put Raheem Mostert / Devon Achane. So I just put the Dolphins at 10.
Okay, so you also, my honorable mentions was the Miami Dolphins, and your number 10 spot is the Miami Dolphins. That's funny.
Exactly. I put Achane is going to be the better receiver better running back long term. But like, I do really like Raheem Mostert because he's fast. he finally looks like he's gotten a really good opportunity to at least flash on the screen with the touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And I will also say that comes from a lot of that really good scheming that they have down there. But I just put both of them at 10 because I think that's fair.
If you just put Achane at 10, I think I could stomach it. I think
you don't like Mostert?
It's not that I don't like Mostert. It's that I know he's not a top 10 running back. He just had a lot of touchdowns because the way that Miami Dolphins offense was, he got a lot of looks in opponent territory and inside like the red zone and at the like 1 yard line or inside the 5. Like if you gave those carries to Achane, he would look like the best running back in football, I think. But also Achane was hurt, so
yeah, I was gonna say I specifically in mind it's Achane / Mostert.
Yeah, if you combine their powers as running backs, yeah, you've got a top 10 guy. So I think if that's how you're looking at it, then sure, I think that's fun.
Yeah.
At my number 10 spot, I'm gonna pander to my co-host here. You're welcome, buddy. At number 10, I have Bijan. He's on my list. I think that he is already a superb runner and receiver. I think if you look at the Cordero revival a couple of years ago, it's like breathing a burst of youth into that kind of mold. I think he's already a much better rusher than Cordero. He has really, really good vision already as just a first-year guy. And with a line that isn't bad, but it's also not like top 10, I would say. You've got a couple of stars and a couple of guys that maybe aren't pulling their weight. Bijan made him look better than they probably were. Yeah. And I think a lot of people's criticisms come with certain areas of the stat sheet. And I don't pay attention to the stat sheet in the slightest when I talk about Falcons offense because Arthur Smith just killed any like validity that has. So I'm really only looking at tape here and highlights. And when you look at that, I think he's a pretty easily a top 10 guy.
Absolutely. So that was number 10. Number 9, maybe this is stupid, but like, can I have Kyren Williams?
Oh, yes! He is my number 9. Yes, we agree. Kyren Williams is our number 9.
Sniped. I didn't know a whole lot about him, but then when I keep looking at stuff, I look at the stats. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give him a look.
Dude, he's really good, dude. He is really fun to watch, man. When I was watching Rams football towards the end of last season, once he finally got healthy again, man, is he fun to watch. And he is a guy that I didn't even have like on the depth chart at the start of the season. I thought it was going to be like Akers and like Darrell Henderson.
Yep.
Like I wasn't thinking about him at all. It really is. It's cool. It's really cool. Like it reminds me of Todd Gurley, which feels so long ago, but it was like 4 years ago.
Exactly. I mean, but we both have him at 9. So
yeah, I think he's a superb rusher already. And I think he's very physical. I think he's very, very tough to tackle. He's got a high motor. I just love the way he plays. It's really cool to watch, like you said. So, yeah, we have him at number 9. Yeah. So, who's your 8?
Let's see. Number 8, just out of curiosity, do you have any more rookies on this list or no?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Is number 8 Jahmyr Gibbs by chance?
It is not my number 8, but you know who my number 8 is, Ryan? David Montgomery. He's the other Lions running back.
No.
Really? You have him off the list?
He is not on this list.
Why?
Also, well, okay, I'm not gonna lie. For the last 5 years that he's been in the league, he has just screwed me in fantasy.
Same. 100% same. I traded him one time at the deadline.
I absolutely hate him.
Yeah, I traded him one time at the deadline a couple of years ago, and he was still on the Bears. He was dog water the first half of the season. Exactly. And then the second half of the year after I traded him, he was the best running back in football, and he beat me in the championship game. I hate David Montgomery for that, but I can't ignore what he did this year.
I will say he is a good guy. But yeah, for me at number 8, I have Jahmyr Gibbs from the Lions.
Okay.
I think he did get a lot more, he should have got a lot more attention, but he was doing pretty damn good with that team. Basically, for me, it's a diet Bijan, He does almost everything. Does everything.
If I were Jahmyr, I'd feel insulted. Diet Bijan. Hey. So you have Bijan high on this list, don't you?
A little.
I'm excited.
He's here. But
So
you can talk about your David Montgomery.
yeah, I'll talk about Monty. So I think he is similar to Kyron in the sense that he's a very headstrong, physical rusher of the football that has a he's very concentrated on rushing. He doesn't do a whole lot of receiving work. And that's just because that's not his role in the offense. So I'm not going to fault him for that. I think he really took advantage of the great offensive line that he has rather than being carried by it. I think he works both inside and outside the tackles. And like Kyron, I have similar things to say about both. He's very tough to take down. And he's a bruiser, man. He is an end zone threat for sure. I'm not just looking at his touchdowns, but I did see. I watched a lot of Lions football last year. My roommate is a Lions fan. He was in the last episode, so shout out Connor if you're listening.
By the way.
So yeah. Oh no, he cooked 100%. We gotta get him back. But I would love for him to be here to hear this take. I think I watched a good amount of Lions football last year, and I saw a lot of Monty touchdowns while he was healthy. That were not just 1 yard dives into the end zone. Like he had breakaway runs where he could kind of kick into another gear. And I wouldn't say he's super, super fast in terms of that hierarchy of running backs, but I mean, he's sneaky. So I would say that's why I have Monty 8. And before we go to 7, that's where I have Jahmyr Gibbs. So I put him back to back, the Lions running backs. And I have similar things to say about him than you do Bijan, but I think Jahmyr Gibbs at this point is better than Bijan, and that's not a popular take. I would say more people have Bijan higher.
Definitely not a popular take.
But the way that I see it is, I saw similar effectiveness from both in the receiving aspect of it, but Bijan, as opposed to his de facto talent, and he plays the position more intelligently. I think he sees the field a little bit better. I think he has a certain type of elusiveness. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is decidedly more athletic. And that is tough to say because that I would not say Bijan isn't. But I would say the burst that Jahmyr Gibbs offers
to extremely athletic people.
I know I am. But the burst that I saw from Jahmyr Gibbs is very, very unique to me. I think he plays just such a refreshing breed of football because he's not like a receiving merchant. Yet when he gets receptions, he can take advantage of them outside the tackles. I think maybe he needs to excel more as a blocker because while he had his highlights for sure, I think maybe that's an area he could excel at further because I would say that Bijan beats him out there. But man, it's just, this one's a preference and eye test thing. I can't really quantify it. It's a different kind of gear that I saw from Jahmyr. So that's why I have him one spot higher.
The reason why mine's not like that and I have Bijan better is also look at that Lions line, my man.
I know. I thought about this. I mentioned this with Monty, but I think I would not shock me this year if Bijan has 1,300 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards. If he Christian McCaffrey's his way into first team All-Pro. But it remains to be seen.
That remains to be seen. Another thing that I kind of wanted to mention was Bijan's also, he had a lot of shared touches with another really good, honestly, you could put him in the honorable mention, Tyler Algier.
Hey, you know who also had shared touches?
Patterson and the freaking, you're talking about for the Lions. Yeah.
They both had wild amounts of production while splitting carries.
They're both insanely good. Now, for me, I will tell you, they are one player between, because we're rolling into our number 6 now.
Did you say you're 7?
No, I was going to say, we're not rolling into our number 6, but we're rolling in, there's a guy between those two, and I just miscounted the thing. 7 for me is a tie, because they really feel very close to play style, and it's honestly just take your pick on which one you want is better. I have Travis Etienne and James Cook. I think they play very similar.
Wow.
Do think
you have them so high.
You're not giving them enough credit. I mean, they're both excel at that pass catching, but when you remember when the Bills were winning, they also utilized James Cook a lot more.
I know, and that's why he's in my honorable mentions.
Correlation, but
he's probably my number 11, but I need to see that consistency again. I need to see if he gives me a first half of this upcoming season like he played
Mm-hmm.
this past one, then yeah, I am wrong. Like that's just an L of an opinion on
Yeah,
my part.
and I
But I need
mean,
to see it
a
first.
team, he essentially just didn't play his first year, but like for the last 2 years, he's been a very reliable backfield for the Jags, which is where I'm giving a lot of his credit for. I also think he's honestly not a terrible blocker that some people like that other people are. He has his he's gotten bullied a few times. I'm gonna be honest, and like both him and Cook have had their lowlights. I think I remember watching Cook fumble like the easiest ball of my life just
Ball
out of
security was a
nowhere.
big thing for me as
Was a
well.
huge thing, which is why
Mm-hmm.
I'm like he's at 7. But I think talent wise, he is very respectfully at that 7 spot. Um,
Yeah. Okay. So you have James Cook and ETN sharing the 7 spot, or are they 7 and
sharing the
6?
7. No, I made him share the 7 just because I'm gonna be honest. When I was making this list, I had one of them a little higher. It was a TN, but then I kind of low key forgot about somebody, so I just shoveled them in there and
Okay.
then said,
And
those
then
two
the
are
guy
good
you
enough."
forgot about was, you can move into that if you want,
Yeah, yeah. No, because we're going into number
the
6. The
6 spot.
guy I forgot about, I put higher. We're gonna have Bijan Robinson. I'm not gonna say he's a top 5 guy in the league yet, but he is definitely on that cusp. Um, some of the nastiest jukes I've ever seen comes from this dude. The ability to just not get tackled is something that is insane for this guy. Like I don't and like another thing is he can be like a really good power back when needed to. He usually doesn't bowl over people, but I've seen a few plays where, he really lowered the shoulder and got a few extra yards. Um, Atlanta's offense, we always have done a dual threat type thing where we have one guy who's like hammer and one guy who's like a screwdriver, like they're good at two things. But I think Bijan like was one of the main reasons why we were winning games late in the stretch if we won at any.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think the main reason of his drawback it was Arthur Smith just trying to ease him into the spot when he is already NFL ready. Like he did not get a lot of touches and stuff. It was mainly Patterson and Algier in like the first few weeks for no other reason than like because Arthur Smith's just not good.
Yeah.
So I have him at 6, and I think that's a fair spot to put him.
I think there's a
You
lot that
could
I
put him a
agree
little
with.
lower.
And this one is tough to compare guys like Jameer and Bijan that have such small sample sizes in the pros. So I don't know. I think it's more preference than anything. So I think that's fair. I think that's maybe a little high, but I also think maybe I have Jameer a little high. So but speaking of having someone higher than you, at number 6, I have Breece Hall. I think I am the biggest Breece Hall fan in the world that's not a Jets fan. I absolutely adore watching Breece Hall. He is the like I just it's tough to talk about him um without sounding like an addict talking about like coke, because I really like watching Breece Hall. It's so much fun to watch. And the kicker about him is that he can't stay healthy, and yet I don't need to see anything else. I already, from what I have seen, when he is on the field, is an absolute showstopper in every possible way. He looks like Christian McCaffrey to me. Like that's what he looks like to me. He looks like Christian McCaffrey, like Carolina Christian McCaffrey. And that's kind of the biggest thing that I can say. Like that's the most impactful thing that I can say about him. So I think I'll just leave it at that. He's a fantastic receiving threat. He sees the field really intelligently. He has great body control when breaking down and making guys miss. He has insane burst. He can hit that top gear. I just watching him is a privilege. I don't know.
Calm down, but I
It's
mean,
a little maybe it's too erotic. I don't know. I
I
just
think you really like how much, because it's so rare to see him healthy on the field.
maybe, yeah,
I
it's
don't
just a
know.
treat to
I
see
was
him when
gonna
he's
say,
healthy. I also
like,
had him in
I feel
fantasy
like,
this past year, but maybe that'd be more infuriating
yeah.
because he was never healthy.
Um,
So, and
I
every
don't know.
time I
The
benched
healthy
him, the
thing
man had
scares me.
42 points, and every time I played him, he had like 10. So,
So he's
I don't
like
know.
your version of David Montgomery, or said. I mean, you also had David Montgomery. Screw
Yeah,
you.
I
So
also had
it doesn't
David
really
Montgomery.
matter. But no, I mean, I really do want to put Hall higher on this list. He's just hurt, and none of the people that I've really mentioned are like that desperately injury prone, unless you want to count Etienne for missing his rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, most of these guys have the ability to stay healthy for long stretches and are actually on the field more than they're off the field, and it's like a decent amount. It's not like close. But Brees Hall, definitely next year, I could easily see being in that top 5 spot, just out of just him doing good if he stays healthy.
Yeah, I think he will.
He has high
I
potential.
think with a better offensive line, which he will have, with a good quarterback, which he will have, unless Aaron Rodgers' other Achilles does the funniest thing ever in Week
I'm
1.
just saying, he is playing the same guy who did
I know he's playing Leonard
on
Floyd.
Monday Night Floyd. That's insane.
I
The
can't
NFL's
believe they
cruel.
scheduled that. They are cruel for sure, and I'm excited to watch that game. But that's my number 6. We move into the top 5 now.
Yeah. So this is the one that I might get some flake for, but I he needs to stay healthy. He needs to stay damn healthy. This will be the one where it's like a hypocrisy moment. Jonathan Taylor.
He is my number 5.
Number
I was
5.
waiting for you to say his name. I agree with you completely.
Needs to stay healthy. He is too good not to be in the top 5. Just because when watching him, you're like, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's insane. But holy crap! Please do something in the offseason to make sure your like ligaments and bones are made out of iron and cable.
Seriously.
Because I want to watch him more, and I'm actually going to watch the Colts a lot this season just because they have a lot of interesting spots. Please stay healthy.
Yeah. That'd be great if he could stay healthy, because I think when he plays, he's one of the biggest difference makers in football. You can feel his presence, and that's even saying that the Colts found a lot of success with other guys in the backfield. They made rookies work, they made journeymen work, but when Jonathan Taylor came back, you could feel it, man. You could feel that presence. It is a guy that you game plan for.
It's insane.
Literally, like when you talk about guys with aura, JT is up there. He is a power back that is still one of the fastest in football.
And is fast.
He's an underrated receiving threat. He's a really nice blocker. I think that he does everything to a high level except stay healthy. And if he can do that, I think he will be more widely considered to be this high. But I can't possibly drop him down knowing what he's capable of,
I was going to say, knowing the ceiling and knowing that the lows aren't even that bad from him, it's like, we have to keep him in there. He has to stay healthy. Number
4.
Yeah, number 4. I think you might have the same guy here, because when we talk about like single-handedly carrying a team, this is the first guy that thinks of my mind. Do you have Saquon Barkley at 4?
Oh, I don't.
Is he at least?
He's higher.
Yeah. In that case, I might know who you have at 4, but I'll just go on a spiel about Saquon for a bit.
Say something about
the
Saquon.
The only reason the Giants had any winning games this year was because of Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
This was one of his first years that he stayed healthy all the way through for the most part. I don't think he had any huge injuries.
I think there was some nagging stuff. He might have missed a game here or there, but he was largely healthy throughout the season, yeah.
But like when you look at the offensive roster that team has, and the second best player on that offense is Daniel Jones, you're running into some issues here, okay? Mm-hmm. And yet they still managed to sneak way too many games. I don't know their record off the top of my head, but they snuck way too many games than they should have. Like, this should have been like a 1-16 type team, but somehow, solely because of Saquon Barkley, they do that, and now he is on the Eagles, which is unfair, to say the least, because now not only is he going to be a nightmare in Madden, he's going to be a nightmare in real life. Because how do you game plan that Eagles offense?
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry
agree.
for you that you had to play him twice. That's
It
rough.
sucks. I had to play him twice the rest of his career, so
Yeah,
it's
but now he's on
fine.
an even better team with a
You
better O
know, the
line.
Eagles usually beat us anyways, so that's
So
fine.
so
Maybe
it's
this
it's just
time
the
we'll
same.
actually be able to beat the Giants because we haven't beaten
I
them
was gonna
since I
say
think 2021. So,
unless
um,
Neighbors somehow fills that spot, which you can't really.
yeah, it's just I'm so sick and tired of losing to the Giants. Um, because like I get it, we're worse than the other two in our division, but we're not worse than the Giants yet. We still lose to them twice a year. Anyways,
We lost to the Panthers once this year. That was not fun.
that's probably was not fun. We lost to Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito, so
That's also not fun.
yeah. So at my number 4, you probably do know who I have if it's not Saquon. It's Derrick Henry. Um, I have King at number 4. I've seen a lot of people drop him relatively far in these lists just because he's older and he's on a new team. I still think he's one of the most physical power backs. And this year especially showed me that he is very underrated as a receiver. Like he had a lot of highlights, more so than maybe the rest of his career. Maybe he's reinventing his game as he gets older. He's got some more tread on his tires. Um, he's trying to go less through the tackles and maybe split outside, some more screens. And when he does, he's very effective. He's a very effective at trick plays. He's one of the best passers at the running back position, something I didn't think that I would be talking about passing ability as a running back, but he's very effective when designing a deeper playbook. I just think that he's very versatile, much more than you would think as being a primary rusher. But on the Ravens this year, I think he'll show why he is still in this upper top tier of his position. But I don't have much to say on Saquon. He is my number 3, I will say. You said pretty much everything that I wanted to. He's elusive. He's quick. He's the most athletic at the position, I think, even more so than the 1 and 2 spot on this list. He is just naturally gifted and talented, more so than so many others. I don't have much else to say on Saquon. I think you pretty much covered it.
Yeah, I was gonna say we basically flip flop 3 and 4 because my 3 is the king. First of
Mm-hmm.
all, there's a reason he is the king.
Exactly.
In order for me to be in the top 3, I feel like you have to excel at one of the categories and be at least top 5 in the other ones. Um, he kind of showed me that he can sneak into that 5th spot with the receiving this year.
Yeah.
Like he is insanely good. Obviously, good blocker, good power run, fast as hell. Like we all know this about King Henry. We've been talking about how good he is since since he's been in the league. So, um, but also you totally forgot that he's actually like probably the best quarterback on that team.
Oh, on the
Most
team?
proven.
Okay. I don't know about on the team, but
No, I'm playing. But he would have
maybe.
won the starting spot in Atlanta if that says
Oh,
anything.
100% he would have.
He could have been a top 32 quarterback.
I'm convinced if he
Um,
played quarterback, he'd be better than Desmond Ritter.
exactly. I mean, he's essentially just the same build as Anthony Richardson. So,
Yeah, basically.
but like, no, there is plenty to say about Derrick Henry, and if you think he is not a top 3 receiver or 4 receiver, I guess in your case, like
Mm-hmm.
definitely guaranteed top 5. You are out of your mind, and you need to go back and just watch film and either look at the stats too, because he is top 5 in both of those. But
Yeah.
with that being said, do we want to just say number 1 and
Yeah,
number
because
2?
we're in a
Because I'm
similar
pretty sure we have
situation.
the
It's the
same
1-2
people.
again. So I'm curious to see if we deviate. Let's say number 1, okay?
All right,
3, 2, 1. Christian McCaffrey.
CMC. Yeah,
Yep. As much as I
this
want to
hurts
put
my
Nick Chubb at
feelings.
number 1, after the season that he just had and Nick Chubb not having a season to compare, I have to put Christian McCaffrey at number 1. I'm absolutely forced to do it. He's the most dynamic weapon in all of football, blah, blah, blah. He carried the offense, in which an offense that has so many other insane pieces on it. He still
I
carried
was
it on
gonna
his
say
back.
you were still the bright
Yeah.
spot in that offense with every I mean they showed the stat they have like 5 or 6 All Pro guys. Like it's like
Yeah,
and you were the
exactly.
best one. That's insane.
Yeah, I just hope Nick Chubb
And
can be healthy because when he is, he's the best pure rusher in all of football. He sees the field like very few um, in the rest of the league. Although he is more lacking on receiving than some others, I would say his rushing ability is bar none best in football when he's healthy.
I
But
was gonna say if you
he's
want to
got to
talk
get
about
back.
dominant rushing, it is Nick Chubb, and then Nick Chubb. There is not
Yeah.
a running back that I can look at, and when I look at Nick Chubb's film, I'm like, oh, he's just as good as a runner because it's just not there. CMC, like we have all said, insane running ability, very mobile, can put people like down when he needs to.
Mm-hmm.
But Nick Chubb, he feels like he like intentionally knocks people over for fun.
Yeah.
Like, this dude gives like
You want to talk about aura? That dude, best aura.
I mean, I've been watching him since college because I was a Georgia fan, and
yeah, I never watched him in college as someone that goes to Georgia, which is a shame because I wish I really watched him in college. I did. I missed out. He was absolutely. I've gone back and seen highlights, of course, but he was scary in college, and he's even scarier now in the NFL. But speaking of scary, that injury was pretty scary. So I hope he comes back.
That injury happened both in college and now in the
NFL.
NFL.
It was the same one. It was shades of the exact same injury. It's scary. I was with my buddies. Yeah, I was with my friends, lifelong Georgia fans. You know, that's most of them that go to Georgia. I myself, I transitioned, but but my buddy who watched Georgia football since he was like 7 years old saw that injury and said, "Not again, not again." We were watching that game together, and he said it happened again. So
I remember like watching that injury, and my dad also watched a lot of Georgia football because me and my brother watched it, so he was just forced to watch.
Sure.
His college was also at a D2, so he doesn't really care. But no, I remember.
Shout out Pops.
Like I was gonna say shout out Dad Bark. No, I just remember him like calling me because I was in college at this time. He called me and was like, "Did you see what happened to Nick Chubb?" Like and then I was like, "Yeah, I saw that. That was like, ooh." That hit me in the soul, man. I stopped watching that game after I saw Nick Chubb injury. Like I just could not watch more games. Like, and then at that point, I honestly was like jokingly saying that the Browns was like a dark horse for the playoff, like can make a deep playoff run.
Yeah,
I was just like, well, have fun being 9-8,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nick Chubb's legendary, and I hope that he is still at the same level after this injury.
Yeah, I really hope he comes back to form after the injury. That was tough to watch because he was at, I think, both of our number one spots before the season started. But obviously, we can't put him at number one after the season. Christian McCaffrey just had Offensive Player of the Year, took him to the Super Bowl. Yada yada. You've heard it all before. So. But when Chubb does come back, if he has a season of his normal caliber, it's gonna be a debate.
He's gonna be back up there. If I have to guess.
Yeah, he'll be competing for sure. But until that happens,
it's gonna be like me, where he flips if they just have a normal healthy career, like Jennings and him. They just stay healthy for the entire season. They're both number ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like. The moral of the story is though Patrick Mahomes sucks.
Facts. That's what we've gleaned from this one.
We did need to mention one more guy, just for the lore,
Oh, I forgot Miles Sanders. I forgot Miles Sanders, dude. Okay, I was
gonna say
he was definitely he's definitely top five. We missed him. He's top five in here.
In my heart,
he's top five in here.
In my heart, Miles Sanders is top 5.
If you don't know why Miles Sanders is top 5, a year ago we learned why.
Exactly, we learned why.
So you can go to the catalog.
Performance.
Of course. But I think that is it. We did wide receivers, running backs. Maybe there's more in the future. We delve into defense. We delve into Ryan's bread and butter, the offensive line.
We do offensive line. I got you. I'll make it the best.
If you want to do offensive line, we'll put it on the TikTok. I don't think I'm qualified enough to talk about it. I think I could figure it out, but I have to watch a lot more film than other positions.
Just do like a 10-minute TikTok about me ranting.
1 hour TikTok. They added it for this. This is why they added it.
I was gonna say, do you have the ability? Do you have the
1 hour yet? Dude, I have it.
Oh, all right, dude. 1 hour special solely for big.
Dude, I'm posting it. It's happening. All right. But until that comes out, I hope this satiates your thirst for content. That is it. The Talking Jack Sports Podcast. As usual, follow the TikTok, follow the Instagram. Wherever you are listening, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we appreciate you tuning in. And if you're not on YouTube, check us out there. You get to see our beautiful faces in some new locations. So that should do it. Appreciate y'all watching and all the support as always. And that should do it. Take care, everybody.